Today we will discuss American federalism. Federalism is a form of government where states and federal level of government, they have jurisdictions which are different and separate. Important feature of federalism: courts, in many cases, national courts play important role in addressing disputes between federal and regional governments. In many countries like Japan, Sweden, France, they have a unitary system of government where central government regulates most issues, public policy issues, and regional governments, they do not have much autonomy. In federal systems, like in Canada, in United States, in Germany, there are different levels of government with different authorities and different sources of income. In confederate governments, currently, maybe you can say that European Union is a confederate government where most power belongs to national governments, and they delegate a few issues to confederation. And again, unitary system, like in France, UK, and confederate system. Some history of this country, and I would guess European Union. Constitution is most important document for American federal system. And the enumerated powers for federal government and constitution, like declaring war, regulating money, taxes, and there are some reserved powers in constitution for conducting elections. Only states can administer elections. Only their laws regulate how states administer elections, and there are a bunch of powers which shared by federal and state governments, like chartering banks, establishing courts, things like this. Again, power granted to Congress, money, establishing courts to resolve disputes, regulation of interstate and foreign commerce, declaring wars. But by the way, basically Congress didn't use this power in like 70 years. The recent wars in which America have been engaged, in Afghanistan, twice in Iraq, Vietnam, Congress did not declare war. They have been done just by presidents, some kind of special operations, though they have been very lengthy and expensive. There are a bunch of clauses in Constitution which are very important for federalism, like a necessary and proper clause. It allows Congress to grab additional powers to continue implementation of existing powers. There are some powers for states. They're called reserved powers because in Constitution, state rights, they're not specifically listed. And there are a bunch of restrictions on state powers. They cannot like print their own money. They cannot do their own foreign relations, stuff like this. And obviously, there are a bunch of amendments into Constitution which restricted ability of state to discriminate people on the basis of race, sex, or age, stuff like this. Supremacy clause says that only federal government, U.S. Constitution is the most important. All other documents on state and local level, they cannot violate U.S. Constitution. and the different levels of government, they have the ability to impose taxes, collect money. As you can see, in 2020, income tax 47% for federal budget, payroll taxes 38%, and corporations are only 6%. That says something about how powerful corporations are in American public policy. For state and local governments, you can see the taxes about third, and support from federal government is about like quarter and a third. So support from federal government to state governments and local governments is a major source of funding for state and local governments. And yeah, these are some shares of how much money different levels of government get from which source. An important thing is in 2019, federal budget spending Medicare and Medicaid 23%, Social Security 22%, Defense 15%. Important number, interest payments on debt, national debt 8%. And here in 2024, all those categories kind of stayed the same, with the exception of net interest. It is 13% in 2024. So payments on interest, they crowd out other kinds of funding, and it's kind of troubling. State and national government, they struggled a lot, especially in the 19th century, about their powers, who can do what. And slavery was the most important issue. And at some point, after the defeat of Confederacy in the South, it was a common principle that states cannot challenge federal laws. And there was this idea of dual federalism after end of Reconstruction, that federal and state governments have distinct powers. During Great Depression, it was obvious that state and local governments had to work together to address common problems like economic regulations, soft welfare programs. And this is a picture of dual federalism and cooperative federalism, how they're different. Under Nixon and Reagan, there was this idea of new federalism, when states tried to grab back some of their powers lost to federal government. And in intergovernmental relationship, federal government tries to compel state governments to implement certain public policies. And the most common way is to give money, to do grants. Most money given from federal level to state level are categorical grants, and they have lots of implementation restrictions, how money can be spent. And as you can see, the most expensive issue would be health. Federal government gives most of its money to states to address various health issues. And funded mandates, in many cases, federal government makes state governments to implement things in education, environmental protection, to make sure people here in America could enjoy similar levels of benefits. There are many contested issues recently: immigration, legalization of marijuana, which are still contested between federal and state governments. There are some benefits of federalism. States could serve as policy incubators, innovation incubators. For example, Obamacare, ACA, Affordable Care Act. Initially, it was passed in Massachusetts by Republican Governor Mitt Romney, and later Obama picked it up and implemented it on national level. And drawbacks of federalism, obviously, like in this country, many states, Florida, whatever, they don't have serious state and local taxes, which means they do not provide many services which people in blue states enjoy. Like there are huge disparities in education, environmental protection, access to healthcare. Thank you very much.